Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, may I have your attention, please? Are you ready to engage in a mind-blowing experience and hear talks about life, technology, entertainment, and business? The next episode of Hipther Talks starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello everyone, good day, good morning, good evening, wherever you are located. We are happy to know that you're tuning in to hear our podcast. Today we're having Felix Negoiță from CryptoDATA Romania. He's the head of AI in this company. And first of all, welcome Felix. Second of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, about the company. Take a spin and make yourself a short intro.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Thank you so much for having me. It's great that we get the opportunity to finally discuss some of our favorite topics a little bit more at length in this friendly virtual fireside chat-like environment. To everyone out there either listening or watching this podcast, my name is Felix. I'm the head of artificial intelligence at a startup in Romania called CryptoDATA. Currently, I'm working on a AI-powered decision-making helping application that we will be launching at the end of March. We're very happy about that. It's called Decision Point, and it's based on a lot of NLP. And I have a background of mostly data engineering, data science, and software engineering. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you have prepared in terms of talking points for our discussion today. And I think without further ado, let's get started, dive right into the topic, and hit me with some hard ones.
Okay, I do have prepared some, not necessarily hard ones, but some strong questions. Today's podcast is called Debunking Big Data and AI Myths, Curiosities, and Fun Facts. Let's start with number 8 on the list.
Okay, fair enough.
Truth or myth? Having big data working on something a guarantee to have ensured a better decision-making process than humans?
Yeah, very interesting topic you've touched on, Alex. It's not a guarantee. So let me give you the answers straight up first, and then we can talk around the subjects a little bit more. It's not a guarantee. However, it helps a lot. Now, you've mentioned decision making specifically. Every time we want to make decisions based on the data that we have, we make some assumptions. Now, usually when people talk about big data, there's two types of enormous amounts of data that you can have available to you. There's enormous amounts of data that you can have for a certain point in time. When you have historical data, you're making the assumption that things will behave in the present as they have behaved in the past. And if that assumption is correct, then yes, big data will 100% help your decision-making process, and you'll get amazing forecasts out of it. However, data scientists need to really consider, or businesses really need to consider, whether or not that assumption is correct. It may not be. So yes, obviously big data does help, but the most important thing is whether or not the sheer volume of data works with or against the assumptions that you make.
Generally, and very short, because this is a subject that can be talked upon like days. In a nutshell, what is big data?
So I would say big data is any amount of data that does not comfortably sit in a single database.
Sticking to big data, let's have another one. Big data is the universal solution.
It is a solution, but not the universal solution. So it is, you might be trying to find patterns and there's not enough data for you, but you have some sort of human intuition or some sort of human level real world knowledge or real world observations that are showing that there's some sort of pattern there that you're trying to discover. So in that case, yeah, it's definitely a solution because it's definitely a pattern. If you like a certain show on Netflix, there's a high chance you will like what other people who like that show also liked, right? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely at the same time not a universal solution, because you have to imagine that there is this storage data layer. And on top of it, there is the compute layer, which is what you do with the data. If your algorithm is faulty, no amount of data will fix that. That's why we can't say that big data is the universal solution. You can have as much data as you want, and on top of it come with faulty logic. That's going to ruin everything.
Do you have to be an engineer to handle big data?
So there definitely are, I think mostly there's software as a service type products, right? SaaS. And it's part of what I'm building right now. And it's also a software as a service where you come to a non-engineer user through a more or less friendly interface. Mm-hmm. And you give them a very specific set of operations or options for them to explore on top of the big data that you have in your data lake in the backend. So there definitely are such services. That's one key case. However, if you're trying to find out something very specific, you're going to 100% need engineers to do it for you, to be able to handle it for you. So you have to have an infrastructure, right? Maybe you're ingesting data all the time. So new data comes in and you have to integrate that, and you have to clean your data because it doesn't come in right. And then from there on, some other software engineers or the same software engineers have to come and build specific machine learning models for your problem, specific software for your problem. It very much depends on your use case. You can kind of do it both ways, I think.
So basically, you don't have to be an engineer to handle big data, but you need engineers to create the instruments you need as a non-engineer to handle big data.
100%. Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
So engineers are our friends then.
yeah, absolutely. You 100% need even when you acquire, you purchase a software as a service, or you purchase any piece of software, whether it's an analysis tool, a visualization tool, any sort of tools, they have to have a lot of engineers in the back end.
There is this urban myth going on that intelligent machines learn on their own.
So they do learn on their own to the extent that once you told it what to do with your data, so once you pointed the machine to the data and you have given it a specific algorithm, which you have to choose for the problem, mind you. So you have to choose very specific algorithms for very specific problems. Once that happens, it takes time. There's what we call in AI a training step that happens in epochs, where the algorithm goes through your data and it does learn by itself. So it creates the model by itself, meaning you can just take your hands off your laptop. Once it has finished, you have a model, which is a result that you can then apply new data on. And it will say something like, you will put labels on your data, or it will try to make a prediction or something like that, right? A recommendation, a prediction. There's also the case of reinforcement learning, which is very popular among the video game community. It was interesting in the case of AlphaGo, who defeated the world champion at Go. They didn't tell it the rules of the game. They just showed it a bunch of examples of the game and let it infer the rules by itself. But even in the case of reinforcement learning, we know how it learns. You have to point it to the data, and then you have to give it an algorithm.
After all this, we are approaching, I think this one we can see for sure is not a myth. And the statement goes like this: AI systems are only as good as the data they are fed.
Right, this is a tough one. So yes, also no.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, also no. So let's take the yes part, right?
Okay.
Let's take the yes part. There is a principle called garbage in, garbage out.
Okay.
The data is what comes in. You feed in garbage, you're gonna receive something that's garbage. So the data has to be relevant to the problem that you're trying to solve with AI. Let's say you want to find out about some sort of purchasing trends. You have to gather data points from people, questionnaire style. You got to go and ask them whatever it is that you're trying to find out about purchasing trends. So here's what happens. If you go and ask only very high income people exclusively, or very low income people exclusively, your entire data set is going to be skewed one way or another. But there's this example in a book, it's called Calling Bullshit. And they give this very funny example in their work. They say some data scientists took the data from athletes running the, I think, 500-meter dash at the Olympics. And they took this data from different instances of the Olympics in the past. And they said, oh, here's something interesting. The time it takes our athletes to run the 500 meters or whatever it was is getting shorter and shorter, right? So they finished the 500-meter dash in a shorter number of seconds, right? Small number of seconds. So what did they do? So they said, let's build a model that tries to predict how fast they'll run at the next Olympics. You have all the data from the past, right? And they did that, but they built a linear regression model. So their model predicted that by 2040 something, athletes will finish the 500-meter dash in -4 seconds or something like that, right? So you can have the data, and the data is accurate and good and representative and not noisy, but you just put an incredibly stupid algorithm on top of it, stupid from the point of view of your problem, right? Contrary to popular opinion or contrary to popular media, we have a very limited number of types of problems that can be successfully solved with AI, with machine learning.
Is AI and or machine learning, is it approaching human intelligence? Are we on that road?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. The kind of intelligence that humans have and the kind of decision making that they do, even with something as seemingly banal as language and speaking and uttering creative things, is something that we have not fully explored, and is something that we have, but almost no idea the workings of. So, no. Sorry to disappoint.
Okay, now something a little bit related to this. Super intelligent computers will become better than humans at doing anything we can do.
So computers can become better and even now are better than we are at certain things. However, better than everything is 100% impossible.
Okay, so we're safe.
Yes,
Now,
we're safe.
we don't have that much time left, and we do have some on-point statements. First one,
Yeah.
AI can be 100% objective.
No,
No. Okay.
definitely not. No way.
Okay. AI can read your mind.
It could make predictions better than we could, even for ourselves. And I think it already does. You've probably spoken to your wife or a loved one about something and you immediately saw an ad about it on social media, or you've seen an episode of some show and then the streaming platform, who shall remain nameless, recommended something and then you were like, oh my God, this is exactly what I wanted to see, right? We've all had these freaky moments.
Yeah.
It can. So it might for some things if you refer to some specific predictions, but
I noticed a trend. Take Siri, Alexa, Cortana, they're female. Most AI bots are female.
I
Why?
wondered about that. I wondered about that too. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's a cultural thing. I don't know.
Does it maybe have to do something with the fact that I'm not remembering the number exactly, but I think 80 or 85% of AI engineers are male?
I haven't really thought of that. It's definitely the case that software engineering is still a male-dominated field, but the trend is declining. It could be that that's the case and there's some sort of male bias there, but that's slowly starting to correct itself, I think, as more and more young women are being encouraged to pursue STEM.
Well, I've got two more. AI means huge budgets and AI will kill jobs.
Right. AI on big data is a huge budget. So it doesn't have to be, but at scale, running AI on big data is very, very expensive.
AI is killing jobs.
All technology kills some jobs, but it also creates jobs. Now, it's 100% going to be a much easier transition than people expect, I think.
So this would be for today. Thank you very much, Felix. Thank you everyone for tuning in on whichever platform you are watching or listening to us. Stay tuned. We have some more podcasts prepared for you, and of course, check us out in the next tech events. The first one would be on the 8th of March, where we have the International Women's Day Initiative and the Tech Conference Series Spring Edition in 30 and 31st of March. So we're preparing stuff. Thank you, Felix, once again, and thank you everyone for joining in.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining. Be sure to check back next week for the next Hipther Talks and subscribe on Amazon Music, Overcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, and Pandora.